Hello YouTube, I'm Annie Johnson and welcome to my still mostly unfurnished and bare reading nook. I read books, I talk about writing sometimes. Mostly I just read books because thinking up my own words is hard during 2020. But today I just wanted to slap together some random thoughts I was having about writing disasters, and especially in dystopian or stories that revolve around the fall of an empire. One of my current works in progress is a fantasy story set around the time of a fall of an empire sort of era. So I've been thinking a lot about, I might obsess a bit too much about trying to be realistic in my story about elves and orcs and magic. And that's a fair criticism that I level against myself. One of the things I felt is unrealistic about a lot of fall of empire stories, which you primarily see in dystopian novels, but I don't want to limit myself to just that. This is why I keep saying fall of empire story. But one of the things I see is that the empire falls entirely due to the actions of the heroes, right? Somebody single-handedly goes and kills the evil Dark Lord and all of the armies with their laser sword or something like that. And it's not, I mean, it's not very realistic, is it, to hand wave away all of social change and cultural momentum. And I think Hunger Games actually did a really good job of this, of showing that the main character was really just a symbol of the movement, and that her choices that mattered were actually kind of small symbolic gestures that motivated others and guided them in the right direction. Now, the reason I thought about this is because another thing about realism in the fall of an empire is that almost every empire in human history fell in part because of a natural disaster. Now, obviously not a natural disaster alone. Not every natural disaster destroys civilizations. But when empires are falling, and usually due to terrible leadership as well as a lot of other social reasons. I'll try to link to Hello Future Me's video because he does a much better job talking about all that. But one of the things I notice in all of those is that all of those other factors take the empire to its limit. They winnow down its support structures. They lean out the fat, as it were. I gotta hate that phrase in business, but because it always is for this exact reason. But they remove its support structures. They remove its ability to cope with randomness of life to the bare minimum that it can to survive. They try to make it as efficient as possible, usually explained as like a cost saving, so they can go and spend more money on lavish palaces or big militaries or something like that. And then when a natural disaster comes, because natural disasters are always coming, that's how life works, there's no slack in the system. There's no room to absorb that shock. Right, you talk about the fall of the Bronze Age, and there's famines come and earthquakes. I mean, I don't know if Pompeii really count. Does the Black Plague cause? Crap, I need to do tons more research. Another great example would be the fall of the Aztecs to the Spanish, along with a coalition of other indigenous peoples that the Spanish had liberated, let's say, but they struck during a smallpox epidemic that had just hit the capital city and weakened the main Aztec forces. My point is, however, because I do not have the time or headspace to actually do all that research, my point is that when you're writing a novel like this, it does add more realism to show the randomness of life had an effect on it. However, it has to be done very carefully because we're not reading books to see how random shit just fucks people over. We're reading books to see how people's choices lead to their results. And just saying, well, a disaster came and that's, you know, the Dark Lord was overthrown because of famine or a plague or a volcano eruption, that's not a satisfying story because the heroes didn't do it. Now, the way to thread this needle, I believe, is that you have to show that while randomness does happen, The reason that it has an effect is because of choices that either the main characters or the villain made, right? There's lots of wonderful stories of the heroes not truly defeating the villain, but the villain being defeated by their own hubris, right? I'm thinking like the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where like the villain dies because she's trying to get the chalice instead of giving it up and embracing life instead. And you can do this with, say, a plague, for example, if you showed throughout the book that the villain was destroying the social safety net that would have made dealing with the plague possible. And if, when the plague breaks out, if the villain denied it, called it a hoax, the villain refused to take precautions, refused safety protocols because he wanted to look tough and not like not like he was scared of a little plague. And then, right, if you build up to this, if you really foreshadow that the plague is a big thing and that the villain is making all the wrong choices, then towards the end of the book, if the villain gets the plague, but the heroes were still at full strength because they had taken this threat seriously, they were prepared to weather this storm, they took the precautions that were necessary to protect themselves. And that was, if the villain, the big bad, being taken out for even a little while was sort of like the reprieve that the heroes needed in order to push forward to victory, then that would really work as a satisfying story, I think. Anyway, this has been my random writing thoughts, apropos of nothing. Anyway, I'm Annie Johnson. If you liked my random writing opinions, please like and subscribe. If you would like to see more videos like this, please let me know. Should I just do the off-the-cuff opinions, or do you think I should actually put the time into writing and outlining for these videos and researching things ahead of time instead of just looking like an idiot as I try to come up with examples? Let me know. Or do you absolutely hate my writing opinions and are going to dedicate your life to writing long arguments about how everything I think is wrong? That would also be really good for my algorithm and my success here on YouTube. So please do. Anyway, I'm Annie Johnson, and I'll catch you all later.